I call to order this regular meeting of this Mount Pleasant City Commission this Monday, February 10th, 2020. I would ask that you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, has the roll been taken?
It has. We actually have a few missing tonight. Commissioners Gillis, Tolis, and Lalone are ill tonight, so just 4 tonight.
Okay. First, we are introducing and swearing in our newest Mount Pleasant police officer, Jason Haynes.
You can come up to the front and take pictures if you'd like. It's fine too.
Besides coming to these meetings, I get to do one of the most exciting things that I get to do, not too often, and that's swearing a new police officer. I'm pleased to announce Jason Haynes as our newest officer. He comes to us with 26 years of law enforcement experience, 23 with the Department of DNR, Department of Natural Resources as a detective lieutenant, and prior to that, 3 years as a Michigan State police officer. Him and his wife recently relocated and live in the city, and she is faculty at CMU. So we're very excited to have him aboard, and we expect good things. You want to say anything?
Director, I would just like to extend my gratitude for giving me the opportunity to serve on a team of highly professional law enforcement officials. As you know, and I'm sure the Commission understands, that the policing community is a fairly small world, and each agency has a reputation that is based upon its officers and its administration. And I want all of you to know that the Mount Pleasant Police Department has just a top-notch, outstanding reputation throughout the other state law enforcement agencies at all levels. So I am extremely happy to have the opportunity to be part of this team, and I would be failing if I didn't point out the support that I've received from my family on this, specifically my awesome wife, Jamie, who has been supportive of this newest endeavor. So thank you to each of you.
Okay, we'll do the swearing. You want to step around here? And raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. I, Jason Haynes.
I, Jason Haynes.
Do solemnly swear that I will support.
Do solemnly swear that I will support.
Defend and uphold the Constitution of the United States.
Defend and uphold the Constitution of the United States.
The laws of the state of Michigan.
The laws of the state of Michigan.
And the ordinances of the city of Mount Pleasant.
And the ordinances of the city of Mount Pleasant.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your service to our community. Next, I will be reading a proclamation in recognition of the 100th anniversary of the United States League of Women Voters.
All representatives of the League are welcome to come up and accept the proclamation.
Whereas, the League of Women Voters was founded in 1920 as a mighty political experiment by the foremothers of the suffragist movement at the National American Women Suffrage Association. And whereas, their goal was to help 20 million women who were granted the right to vote by the 19th Amendment understand and carry out their new responsibility as voters. And whereas, with the success of this effort and the tireless efforts over the last 100 years to strengthen and uphold its mission to empower voters and defend democracy, the League has become a trusted, nonpartisan grassroots organization. And whereas, the League has sponsored legislation and fought in the courts to protect and strengthen voting rights and access, and for free and fair elections, civil rights, children, community health, and education. And whereas, the League has consistently been noted for its nonpartisan election information, including sponsorship of candidate forums and information on state and local ballot issues, as well as its commitment to register, educate, and mobilize voters. And whereas, the League champions government systems that are open, transparent, inclusive, and equitable. And whereas, the League believes that active and engaged citizens, irrespective of gender, ethnicity, or political affiliation, are the hallmark of democracy. Now, therefore, I, Mayor of the City of Mount Pleasant, do hereby proclaim February 14th, 2020 as League of Women Voters Day in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. And further, we honor and congratulate the League of Women Voters on its 100th anniversary and commend the League for its significant contributions to empowering voters and making democracy work. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand on the Great Seal of the City of Mount Pleasant, Michigan, this 10th day of February, 2020.
Can you get them all in, or do you need them to squish together?
All right, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, we have a Census 2020 update by our clerk, Jeremy Howard.
Evening. Go through another quick update, our monthly update on the census to get some good information out there. We obviously are continuing to meet. The City's Complete Count Committee and the Isabella County Census Advisory Committee continue to meet regularly. We have our next meeting coming up in a few days. We have a number of census promotional material out at the front desks, if you've seen throughout City Hall and some of our other buildings. We have some hand sanitizer and chapstick out at the front desks. And strangely enough, the hand sanitizer is going really fast right now with as much as the flu and sickness are going around. So I keep having to refill that one quite often, especially at our high traffic desks. So we're getting the information out there through that promotional material. And we have some additional promotional material that we have ordered as well, and so that'll be coming pretty soon. We also continue to push out information on our newsletters and social media. Watch for those as our PR department continues to push that out on all of our different channels and newsletters, both electronic and print. Here's a sneak peek. We actually have some t-shirts that are freshly designed. These are being ordered for staff, volunteers, and promotional items that we can use as we go to events. So that's you'll see those, hopefully staff wearing those potentially maybe on Fridays and some different things to get the word out. And then hopefully we'll get the community wearing them as we pass those out as at events that we have as well. Did meet with CMU specifically the other day. Met with Sean Holk-Reeve, had a very good meeting with him, discussing some of the ways that we can make sure that we get an accurate count of CMU students. Traditionally, those students are undercounted in most censuses, so college students are something we're obviously focusing on, especially those students who live off campus. We still are hopeful that on campus we'll be using the group quarters enumeration. All signs point to that being the case, so that shouldn't be a problem counting those students who live on campus, but there still are a number of students, obviously, who live inside the city limits that are not living on campus. So we actually have a couple events coming up. March 26th and April 9th will be on campus to actually have some events, some all-day events there where we can communicate with students and pass out information. We'll have tablets there where they can actually take the census right there while we're standing there. We'll hopefully be both in the Bovee and in the Park Library across the street in two very high traffic areas. If it's nice, we'll be outside. We'll have some giveaways and some food hopefully, and hope that you can stop by and see. It'll be obviously on campus, but anybody could stop by and take the census who would like to take that on one of the tablets that we'll have there. So look for that, and more information will be coming out as we push that out as well. Some of those t-shirts that you saw, we're hoping to get some of those out at a couple of basketball games to have some of those thrown out at the crowd, to the crowd, to the student sections. So hopefully we'll be able to do that at towards the end of February, most likely at a couple of games. Just wanted to talk real quick about the actual census questionnaire. We get comments and questions about in past, the census has been relatively long. People have said it takes a long time to actually fill it out. So it's actually pretty simple, quick to fill out. There's only 9 questions. You can respond online, you can respond via paper, or you can even respond over the phone. That website that you see on the screen there actually will take you to a census kind of slideshow that will show you the different questions and walk through each question and why that question is asked and explain what the question is. So I actually have a picture here. It's on 2 different slides, so this kind of shows you the 9 questions that are on there. It's a little small to see up there, but this is just to kind of show you. It's really just 9 questions, pretty simple, asking about who lives where, whether you own your house, what your telephone number is. Then on the second page, there's some more information about specifically names, whether, what sex, age, date of birth, race, those type of questions. So there are further pages beyond this one that would be if there are further people in the house that would ask the same questions for the other people that live in the house, but pretty simple to fill out, as you can see. And I'll leave you with this slide again. This is the Shape Your Future, Start Here slide. So that's kind of the motto of the census, and we encourage everybody to keep watching for information. We'll hope the federal government will continue to push out information, and we don't have an actual location yet that you can go to take the census. We're hoping that will come out in early to mid-March. So when we know that information, we'll be able to pass that along as well. Any questions?
Any questions for Jeremy?
No questions.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda tonight? No. And I think Manager Ridley had a comment.
Mayor, I can't ask you to remove it from the agenda because since you're at the minimum for quorum, you don't have enough votes to remove an item from the agenda. But I did want to let you and individuals in the crowd know that we will be recommending when we get to item number 13, which is about the special assessment for the pedestrian lighting, we will be recommending that you postpone taking any action on that item tonight. And the reason for that is in order to move that project forward, at least 5 affirmative votes are needed. So it seemed like it didn't make sense to ask you to vote tonight when you only have 4 people in attendance. So we will be recommending that that item be postponed until your next meeting when you have at least 5 members in attendance, just to give you and the crowd a heads up.
Okay. Seeing no additions or deletions to the agenda, I will open up our first public input, and this is for agenda items. So if you'd like to make public comment on an agenda item, please come to the podium, state your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes to address the commission. Seeing no one come forward, I will now close the public input. And we have a receipt of our petitions and communications, and I'd ask Manager Ridley to start us off.
Yes, under this section of the agenda tonight, you have your report on pending items, and attached to that this meeting is also the monthly report we provide on complaints received and the annual report that we provide on vehicle, bicycle, and vehicle pedestrian accidents. We've been providing that annually for the last couple of years, and it gives 5 years of historical data on the number of accidents that fall in that category and where those might have occurred. Also this evening, we have the November minutes of the Parks and Recreation Commission, as well as the November minutes of the Economic Development Corporation and Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. And then lastly, there's one correspondence in your packet tonight regarding the special assessment, and that's from Dave Duba, who owns property on Michigan Street, and no additional communications came in after the packet was put together.
Okay. I guess I'd just like to add a comment that when you look at our bicycle and pedestrian statistics for the last 5 years, we've had actually a very positive trend that we've had less incidents of bicycle incidents. And so I think that shows that as a city we're becoming more safe for bicyclists. And also we've had, last year we had no fatalities for pedestrians or bicyclists. So I think that's really good data to see. Next on our agenda, we have our consent calendar items. Consent calendar items are items on the agenda that have an asterisk next to them. Do any items need to be removed from the consent calendar tonight? Seeing none, I will ask Manager Ridley to read us off.
Yes, we're recommending the approval of the minutes of both your regular meeting of January 27th and your special meeting of February 3rd. And then we have 2 bids for you this evening, both of them related to Island Park. The first one is to install irrigation in our 3 softball fields at Island Park. Even though only 1 bid was received for this project, it was close to the estimated amount and is from a bidder who we've had previous positive experience with. So we're recommending award of the bid to Thalen Turf for $26,800. And I would mention that we received a contribution from the Convention and Visitors Bureau for this project of $10,000. So $10,000 of that will be funded by the CVB, and the other $16,800 will be funded by the city. The second bid is for the replacement of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Bridge that connects Island Park and Pickens Field, and the installation of a half-mile non-motorized pathway to connect to the existing non-motorized pathway in Island Park, as well as installation of some fitness components along that pathway. This project was originally planned in 2016, and we received a Michigan DNR passport grant to partially fund it, and we've also received allocations from the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe toward the project. Unfortunately, the project was planned in 2016, and you'll recall due to the flooding we had in 2017, we didn't do any new construction projects that year, and some of our other projects got backed up over time so that we could deal with the results of the flood. We had intended to do the project last year, but were delayed in receiving our permit from the DNR, so we finally got it out for bid for construction this year. Because we were using 2016 prices, though, you can imagine that the bids came in a bit over budget as a result of that. And all of the bids came in high, so we knew it was a matter of the change in pricing. And we've worked with the low bidder to reduce a little bit out of the bid price, approximately $20,000, by using standard road grade gravel as the base instead of limestone, and reducing the number of fitness components on the trail. Even with that reduction, though, we're still over budget, so we're recommending that we reallocate some existing funds and then also allocate an additional $34,000 out of the capital improvement fund so we can finally get that project done and fulfill our grant requirements. So we're recommending award of the bid for a not to exceed amount of $414,500 to Isabella Corporation and the appropriate budget amendments that go with that. The next item on the consent calendar is to recommend that you authorize the mayor and clerk to sign a contract amendment with Consumers Energy. And what this contract amendment would do is it would install additional street lighting at the intersections of Pickard and Mission and High. And this project is in the DDA budget this year to increase vehicular safety as well as pedestrian safety. And we would put 8 LED lights at each of those intersections, exactly like what we've done at Mission and Broomfield, Mission and Bellows, and Mission and Preston. So we're recommending authorization to sign that contract to get that work done this fall. And the next item on the consent calendar is we're recommending an amendment to the assessing contract we have with Cookie Property Services for our assessing services. Currently, Mr. Cookie is in our actual physical offices 2 days a week and is in the field in Mount Pleasant 1 day a week, and then does all of the necessary work to carry out our assessing functions, whether he's in Mount Pleasant or at a different location. As they reviewed the contract this year, because of how available he is to us over the phone and via email, we believe that having 2 office days is likely no longer necessary. And so we're recommending we change the contract so he's only in the office 1 day per week. And then commensurate with that, we would adjust the amount we pay under the contract by $10,000 per year. So we're recommending you authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the amendment for the contract. And then lastly, the standard payrolls and warrants.
I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar items as presented. Moved by Commissioner Ronan.
Do you need to say the word? Does he need to say?
That we approve the consent calendar as presented.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, the same. So that is unanimous. Next on our agenda is a public hearing. Public hearing to amend section 112.03 of chapter 112, medical marijuana facilities, in title 11 of the Mount Pleasant City Code, and consider approval of the same. This amendment is really just a minor text change to make more clear the documents that are necessary for a medical marijuana facility application. And Manager Ridley, if you have additional information.
No, I would just indicate, as we reviewed the ordinance at the end of last year, that's the only identified change that we recommended, and you asked us to move forward with it. And it would replicate what we require for recreational marijuana applications. And also, quite frankly, it is what we required for medical. And I think of all of the applicants we had, everybody complied with it except for one applicant. So we thought it was fairly clear, but this makes it even more clear by this amendment if you approve it this evening. So after the public hearing, we recommend you approve it as presented.
Okay. We'll now open the public hearing. And if you wish to make comment, you can come to the podium, state your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes to address the commission. Seeing no one come forward, I will close the public hearing. And I would entertain a motion. Vice Mayor Perschbacher.
I move to approve the ordinance to amend section 112.03 of chapter 112 as presented.
Commissioner Alsager.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Nope. No. Commissioner Ronan?
Yeah, do we have any update on applications?
For recreational establishments, as of Friday, well, as of today, we still have no applications that have been turned in.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, the same. That is unanimous. Next on our agenda is a public hearing on the Michigan Economic Development Corporation Infrastructure Resiliency Grant application for a wastewater treatment plant, and to consider approval of the same. Manager Riley, do you have any comments?
Yes, our DPW staff has been working on a grant application through this program, and it's actually community development block grant monies that are available through MEDC. And one of the grant requirements is to hold a public hearing before the grant is submitted. And the grant we've been working on will cover projects that have been planned over the next couple years in our capital improvement plan. And more specifically, it includes the rebuilding of both of our digesters at the wastewater treatment plant. The current engineering estimates for these rehabilitations is actually much higher than what we had originally planned in our capital improvement plan. So the grant will be very important for our ability to get the necessary work done. The grant request will be for $1.7 million and will be required to match at least 25% of that. We expect, based on the estimates, that we will be matching more than 25% of it, but we're hopeful that our grant will be looked favorably upon by MEDC and hope to be able to report to you that it's been awarded to us. But before we can get to that point, we need you to hold the public hearing and then authorize the resolution and plan as presented.
I'll now open the public hearing, and if you wish to make comment, please come to the podium, state your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes. Seeing no one come forward, I will close the public hearing. And I would entertain a motion to approve the Commissioner Alsager.
I move to approve authorizing resolution and development plan for the Community Development Block Grant.
Commissioner Ronan?
Second, but she just moved.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, the same. All right, so that is unanimous. All right. Next on our agenda is item number 13, which is to consider Resolution 3 as postponed from our previous meeting, which is on the necessity of the special assessment project for District 1 2020, which concerns pedestrian lighting on Michigan Street. Manager Riley, did you have any comments?
Not other than what I said before. We're recommending you postpone it until your next meeting, where hopefully you'll have more than 5 in attendance.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to postpone. Vice Mayor Perschbacher?
I motion to postpone the resolution number 3 for the special assessment, though I would preferred to have gotten that handled tonight. But obviously with 4 people, we can't do that because we need 5 positive votes. So I've moved to postpone that.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
I would like to thank the office staff. When it came up at the last commission meeting, we asked for several alternatives, and I see that those alternatives, we're not going to discuss them, I agree, but it was just nice to see those alternatives nicely presented and worked out. I mean, it gave us some ideas. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor of postponement, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed, the same. That is postponed unanimously. Item number 14, which is to consider a restrictive covenant requirement associated with the Economic Development Association grant for Industrial Park South Detention Pond, which was also postponed at our last meeting. And I will ask Manager Riley, did you have any comments?
Yes, as you indicated, we asked that you postpone it at the last meeting so we could hopefully gather some additional information on it. And since that time, we and the city attorney have had additional conversations with both staff and the attorneys at the EDA to see if we could convince them to reconsider the requirement to have those restrictive covenants in place for the EDC-owned parcel. Unfortunately, we did not make any progress in getting them to change that requirement. They have unwavered on that, but they did give us additional clarity on what that requirement really means. And basically, when the EDC sells that land, As long as it's used for an industrial purpose, there will be no issues with the grant. If it's used for something that may be more commercial in nature, the EDA would have to review that use and sign off on it. And if it's something that they don't think is appropriate for what the grant was trying to accomplish, they may not sign off on it, or they may require that if the sale goes forward, that we repay the grant. The other thing they indicated is if it was for an activity that is illegal at the federal level, they may not sign off on something like that, such as a marijuana facility. So we feel like we have better clarity on what they would sign off on and what they wouldn't than what we had 2 weeks ago. The other thing that has occurred since 2 weeks ago is we had the meeting with the Economic Development Corporation to talk to them about their willingness to consent to having the covenants recorded for the property that they own. And as they did their evaluation, they balanced the benefit of expanding the pond, which will have some immediate positive impact to the park, because as Mr. McBride mentioned, there's 2 or 3 companies that are anxious to expand and are waiting for the expansion of the pond in order to do that. And the Economic Development Corporation also felt like the impact on marketing, now that we have better clarity on what could go there, is not as great as what we were first concerned about. And if they really had an offer from one of those activities that the EDA may not approve, their feeling was they could either not go forward with the sale so that we wouldn't have to pay back the grant, or if they thought that what was coming to that property was so worth it, they could negotiate the price of it so that the city maybe would have additional funds to pay back the grant if required. So they felt the benefits of expanding the pond outweighed any risk in marketing that they may have. So they actually passed a motion authorizing the approval of the recording of the covenants. So we're before you tonight suggesting that you take the same action. Although there is some risk there, we feel that the risk is not as great as what we were first concerned about. So we would recommend you pass the motion to authorize the recording of the covenant so that we can formally accept the grant.
Commissioner Alsager?
I move we approve the covenant as presented.
Commissioner Ronan?
I second.
Discussion? I'm a city representative on the Economic Development Corporation. I would reiterate the comments that Manager Ridley had, that the EDC board felt it was better to move forward, and that the businesses that are currently there will have more opportunity to expand their operations and increase their hiring, and that's really the goal of the EDA, is to increase high-level jobs, and that's what we have in the South Industrial Park, and that if a future sale were to come and the EDA had issues with it, that we would deal with that at that time, and they were willing to move forward and felt that was the best. So, seeing no other discussion, all those in favor of approving the EDA resolution or amendment? I'm sorry. Please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, the same. Okay. That is unanimous. Next on our agenda is announcements on city-related issues and new business. I'm just going to give another plug for ICRH. It's pretty cold out there and a lot of snow, and we're always looking for volunteers for Isabella County's rotating and temporary homeless shelter. And our aim is to provide temporary shelter and a path to sustainability for our guests. So if you have the time or resources to donate, we really appreciate it. And you can visit icrhouse.org. Seeing no other announcements or city-related business, I will open up our public comment on any items that are city-related. So if you'd like to come up to the podium, state your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes to address the commission. Seeing no one come forward, I will close the public comment. And we will be recessing for a work session upstairs on a presentation from the Central Michigan University Center for Applied Research and Rural Studies on mayoral election research.